pedestal of the Statue of Liberty are carved the words, "Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me." A sweeping invitation that, inspired by immigrants, addressed to immigrants, and speaking today more directly than ever to the refugee. A refugee is an immigrant who has been pushed, driven by force, or by his own hatred of oppression. Johann Lang is a refugee, an average specimen. Vienna knew him before Hitler marched in as a furniture designer. And Lisbon knew him sometime later as a man with one drive and one dream, America. It's hardly possible for an American born and bred to sense at once the value put upon these entrance visas, or to feel the drama, the tragedy behind them. This is the dreamed of happy ending within grasp, and yet there is tension here. For 100 years, U.S. immigration officers have painlessly shown the way to those who knocked at freedom's door. But to a newcomer of Lang's experience, all officialdom is fearsome. Can some oversight, some flaw, halt him now? What is the officer thinking? Am I suspected? These are slow-marching moments, leaden with old fears. Anxiety is chronic with him. He must brace himself so that the signing hand doesn't shake. And then, through the buzz and blur of longing, of hope and fear, he hears the officer saying that everything is quite in order, all as it should be. Yes, he's welcome here. Welcome, Johann Lang. Welcome to America. And welcome Giovanni Ravelli of Italy, Carlo Valconen of Finland, Demetrius Socrates of Athens, Helga Alving of Norway. Welcome Pierre Dubois of France and Jean Boissier of Belgium. A welcome ringing with echoes of Quakers and Dutch and Moravians and Greeks, of Slavs and Armenians, of Irish, of Scotch, of Puritans and Pilgrims. 100 literary immigrants have made tall dramatic tales of this first day in America, but to none has it been so exciting, so joyous, as to the refugee from the slum and desert and armed camp that were Hitler's Europe. The freedom, the wandering unmolested, the looking, the craning, the neck stretching, the cleanliness, the noise, the bustle, the cheerful, career-mad, driving, peaceful, unself-conscious show that is Manhattan. The jagged peaks against a sky never blemished by bombs. And the plenty, the inconceivable plenty, and the obvious but incredible fact that Americans, millions of Americans, have the money to buy these things. But a refugee with no knowledge of English is like a man who has lost his hearing. So what can Lang make of this?
But what he lamps in her, I can't dig that droopy Susie type. I just can't. Oh, well, I gotta zip home and wash my nylon. Solid session tonight. And I burned and I'm blowing my top. This Susie says I'm trying to give the glam to her GI guy. Imagine me going for a stool like that. That ought.
Diplomatic, that's a laugh. Soapy, that's what I call it. Schmaltzy, gooey, that's your Louie. Sounds mighty sweet, except behind your back.
You just don't understand a perfect chef, that's all. I say he's a solid Sunday. He's really regular, he's all right, he's in the groove.
Hey, on me, Mr. Gunner.
Three hours and 5 miles later, far down the canyon of Manhattan, Johann Lang has his second encounter with a uniform, startles him somewhat. It'll take some weeks of seasoning before he fearlessly can hail the policeman who guided him to the National Refugee Service. The National Refugee Service, offering aid and resettlement to persons of all creeds, whom Hitler and the fascists have driven to the New World empty-handed. This is a minute sample of the hated ones. Of the 300,000 who have been lucky enough to escape to America in 10 years, an average of 30,000 a year, a tiny segment of a tiny group. Of the 30,000, half have been Jews, half have been Christians. Survey them closely, appraise them well. Here you'll find a scholar, an author, a teacher, a composer, a rabbi, a skilled artisan. Fortunately for us, the people Hitler and his colleagues have most despised are invariably the highly skilled, highly talented, like Johann Lang. There could be inspiration here for Lang. These too were immigrants. John Moses, now senator from North Dakota. Senator Robert Wagner of New York. General Knudsen, a great recruit from the auto world. United States Senator James Murray from Montana. Now, Lang was a designer of furniture. For 20 years, showrooms and warehouses in Vienna blazoned his name. And now on this desk are his worldly goods, his whole stock. Well, Johann Lang, we can't set you up in business as a designer, but there is a critical shortage of upholsterers. You can be speedily retrained in this kindred work, made self-supporting within a few weeks. Lang's class is one of a score, sponsored by the Refugee Service, craft courses, carefully adjusted to supply those industries short of skilled workers. And when you are ready, Johann Lang, the NRS will help you reach a city, one of whose factories has filed a request for your new skill. This is your artisan 3 weeks later in a Middle Western city. He still is on the records of the National Refugee Service, which found him a job and lent him the money to reach it, and incidentally got it back. For the records, the service is interested in what he is doing now. And tonight, Workman Lang exercises his most cherished privilege. A privilege seized by 90% of his fellows. The filling out of his application for first papers, his declaration of intention. Initial preparation in a 5-year project leading to citizenship. His declaration of intention. To belong to this nation under God. To have a new birth in freedom. This is Johann Lang. A simple man, a humble man, a refugee. Refugees, let us make a brief index. A family practitioner once of Warsaw aids other doctors now as a physiotherapy technician. A feminine MD of Norway serves as an X-ray operator. This man owned an inn in the Tyrol. The kitchen fascinated him. Now he's a baker. In Copenhagen, he was a dentist. Here, a dental mechanic. The refugee, the American in the making, you'll find him and her in the arms plants. You'll find her hopefully preparing for a metropolitan debut at the School of the American Ballet. Waverly, Iowa. This sugar mill, abandoned 20 years ago, has been restored to thriving service. by an industrialist who once managed a chain of German refineries. Thus, newcomer Albert Flegenheimer produces 16,000 new U.S. work hours. Now swing down to the back country of Kentucky. This is the home of a new and influential and tireless figure of the community. Dr. Richard Adler, a specialist of Vienna 4 years ago. You might expect to find him in a great urban hospital. He voluntarily selected a region that puts the highest value, the most Spartan service on a physician, though it cannot pay the highest fees. Here you see Dr. Adler's new field of practice at its most sunny and serene. In winter months, he's accustomed to make these rounds on horseback. Young Dr. Adler has chosen a territory whose babies seem to make a special point of being born 25 miles apart, and whose fathers, 90% of them, pay the doctor in crops. With his wife, a pediatrician trained in Austria, Switzerland, and Chicago, Dr. Adler is 2/3 of the medical talent available in a vast region. He could consider his work with pioneer pride. He's learned to drive a jalopy along the bed of a mountain creek. He has managed to keep appointments on the dot in a countryside that hasn't changed much since Daniel Boone's day. Looking not at a dramatization or a reenactment. You are witnessing routine service by a former member of the staff of Vienna's Franz Joseph Hospital. Richard Adler, M.D., is proud of his acceptance in his new community, which has elected him assistant health officer. Most proud because despite the fees and potatoes and vegetables, he this year paid his first American income tax. Brooklyn, New York. Emile C. Matisse was a motor car manufacturer on the Maginot Line. What happened to his auto plant? It was razed. Who wrecked it? Matisse wrecked it, anticipating the Nazi. We find him in August 1941, starting afresh in America. Skip now to his completed airplane munitions plant, flying the Army-Navy E for excellence, with contracts 7 months ahead of schedule. Chicago. From the Physical Institute of Göttingen, Germany, comes James Franck, Nobel Prize winner for atomic discoveries. The University of Chicago claims him now for continued research, for the inspiration of tomorrow's scientists. New York, Victor Francis Hess, Nobel Prize winner for the discovery of cosmic radiation. He was called to the Catholic Fordham University after the fall of Austria. These are strong and great men. We need not be told what we gain in a Thomas Mann, author of Magic Mountain and the Joseph books. Another of the 11 Nobel Prize winners Hitler and his gang have presented to this country. This dateline happens to be Princeton, where the Institute for Advanced Study was established for this man. You know him. Only a few especially prepared minds of our generation can follow his charting of time and light and space. But wherever on earth thought is free, he must be taken into account. But he too was a refugee. His books burned, his property confiscated. Refugee no longer. In the town of Trenton in 1940, Albert Einstein became an American citizen. Strong men, great men, tangible assets. But perhaps a Walt Whitman searching for the song of the refugee would look to these less distinguished ones gathered for a mass blood donation. To Sergeant Werner Katz, a refugee member of Merrill's Marauders, contributing to the plasma that saved him in Burma. In 5 years, one may qualify for citizenship. After the years of study, the final step before admission, is examination under oath by a naturalization officer. The immigrant must have lived 5 years in the United States. He must produce 2 Americans who have known him intimately throughout this time, and all they know of him must be good. He must know many other things about his new country. Sometimes he knows more than we do. Of free religion, speech, meeting and petition. Of suffrage's long, slow evolution. Of congressional apportionment. Of Button Gwinnett and Andrew Jackson. So they come to America as they always have. As the Puritans came, and the Huguenots, and the Cavaliers. The Pennsylvania Dutch, the Dakota Swedes. As Alexander Hamilton came, and Carnegie, and Edward Bok. Since Hitler, they have come, immigrants and refugees, at the rate of 50,000 a year. Some, you will hear, say that's too many. It is 100,000 less than the authorized quota. It is an even million less, and came in 1 year alone in 1910.
I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, of whom or which I had heretofore been subject or citizen, that I will support and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. So help me God.
We believe this oath. We believe it as our fathers believed it. Some of them swore it. Some of them only heard it echoing down a century. But all believed it. For as long as you believe it, this is America.